Chapter 594, Vanguard. Zhu Jing thought of Bai Li Changqing's evaluation of Zhang Yi and couldn't help but sigh. This person puts personal interests first and is indeed not suitable for being absorbed into my Blizzard City. The secretary Lan Xinqing next to him heard this and immediately came over, smiling and saying, after the previous chaos of the corpse tide, Tianhai City is now almost abandoned. Not only are there few living people, but the major powers have also suffered serious damage. Judging from their current strength, they are unable to undertake the task of maintaining stability in the region. Now that Zhang Yi is once again acting in a way that is unsatisfactory, why not consider supporting a new group of powers? Zhu Jingwen's eyebrows twitched upon hearing this, and he was actually somewhat tempted. The huge Tianhai city was a super city with a population of 20 million at the time. The city was also very rich in resources. But now, the population is dwindling, and the few major forces in the city are unable to govern except for Zhang Yi's team. It would be better to introduce forces from other cities. This will, on the one hand, stabilize the Tianhai city area, and on the other hand, it will also give Zhang Yi a check and balance, preventing him from becoming too dominant in Tianhai city. To be honest, it is still because of Zhang Yi's lone wolf style that Zhu Jing does not like him. He placed his hand on the table and tapped it a few times before slowly saying, "This matter can be included in the plan." Coincidentally, there are 10 forces participating in the Linhai City mission. When the mission is completed, there will not be enough territory in Linhai City to go around, so we can introduce a few of them to Tianhai City. That will work out well. Between the two of them, they casually divided up Tianhai City like it was a piece of cake. In fact, for Zhang Yi, it didn't matter. His team was small, and he only needed the 2 territories of Lujiang District and Xishan District. No matter how Zhu Jing messed things up, it wouldn't affect him, and it would only affect the interests of the other 3 teams. However, if anyone dared to take food from his mouth, heh. Zhang Yi gave Jiangnan District face, "So you can come over. But once you're here, can you still leave?" At that moment, Zhu Jing received a report from the front desk. "Commander, Captain Deng Shintong of the Heavenly Squad is here to see you." Upon hearing this, Zhu Jing raised his hand and said, "Let him in." Lan Xinqing smiled and said, "Deng Shintong is probably here to ask for a battle." The Heavenly Squad led by Deng Shintong was the most famous in Blizzard City. This was because Deng Shintong was young, strong, and warlike. He was always the most active person on missions, eager to make a name for himself and achieve great things. He has been topping the point rankings in Blizzard City for nearly 2 months now. As a result, many people in Blizzard City believe that he is the #1 expert in the Jiangnan region. Coupled with his outstanding background and handsome appearance, he was once supported by most of the residents of Tianhai City. Many people even believe that one day, once Zhu Jing retires from the front line, it will be Deng Shenfa who will take over the position of regional commander. Facing this young genius, Zhu Jing also greatly admires him. After a while, Deng Shintong entered Zhu Jing's office through several doors. As soon as he arrived, he asked Zhu Jing, "Commander, why didn't you let us go on this mission?" Although there are a lot of different people being sent on this mission, it is obvious that the other party is not an ordinary organization of different people. If they really want to escape, those forces in the outer city simply cannot catch them, Deng Shintong said with some contempt. After all, they are not professional. And they are fighting with each other, making it even more difficult for them to cooperate. But after hearing these words, Zhu Jing laughed. Leaning back on the sofa with a tactical posture, he asked lightly, "Do you know a lot about Eclipse Moon?" Deng Shintong opened his mouth, but no words came out. They had never had contact with the Ronin from Neon, and they were unable to obtain any intelligence. Zhu Jing took a deep breath and said, "Today's Neon is divided into 2 factions, Kanto and Kansai. One is Kanto's, and the other is Kansai's. The Eclipse Moon Group is a group of Ronin who rule Kanto. Even the Azuma organization, which controls most of the official power in Kanto, is at their mercy. This shows that these Ronin are very powerful, and they can even be compared to you investigation teams." Zhu stared at Deng Shintong, his gaze serious. Until I get accurate information, I can't possibly let you go and risk your lives. After all, the 6 investigation teams are the pillars of Blizzard City. Deng Shintong frowned. Neon is just a tiny country, and what level can an organization of foreigners be that roams freely in that place? Zhu Jing shook his head, looking at Deng Shintong with some helplessness. Don't underestimate your opponents. Underestimating them is the same as belittling yourself. Even during the War of Resistance against foreign aggression, our battle losses to Neon were 5:1 or even 9:1. We can strategically belittle the enemy, but we must tactically value the enemy. Never be careless. Deng Shintong calmed down and thought to himself. Although Neon's land area is not large, it is equivalent to a province, with hundreds of millions of people. According to this ratio, it is not surprising that many powerful aliens have emerged from it. Deng Xinlin even jokingly thought that Neon people have always been more perverted, and it is normal for them to be a little more powerful after the mutation. He understood Zhu Zheng's purpose. So what you mean is that letting the forces in the outer city go to Linhai City is actually to let them obtain information about Eclipse Moon? Zhu Zheng nodded approvingly. Yes, that is the purpose. Of course, it would be best if they could successfully eliminate this group of aliens. But even if they fail, they can at least capture something from Eclipse Moon. Then they will also get a share of the credit in your book. Deng Shintong understood Zhu Zheng's thinking and calmed down. It's just that I don't think those people are strong enough to do it. For some reason, Deng Shintong's mind conjured up the figure of Zhang Yi. Among the forces in the outer city, there were not many people who could enter his eyes, and Zhang Yi was undoubtedly the most outstanding one. Because he defeated Wu Di. Deng Shintong could not help but ask, is Zhang Yi from Tianhaishi going? Hearing Deng Shintong ask about Zhang Yi, Deng Shintong, Lan Xinqing, and Sun Luxuan were all a little surprised. This arrogant and proud captain of the Celestial Squad rarely heard other people's names from his mouth. Zhu Jing was a little displeased. That guy? He didn't even sign up for this operation. He's really cunning. Deng Shintong's eyes flashed, but he laughed. It's better to say that he's smart. At least he knows that this mission is not that simple. Zhu Jing obviously didn't like this statement very much. He crossed his arms and said with a stern face, if everyone is as self-centered as him, then the Superpower Federation will not be able to continue. Zhu Jing is a soldier, and soldiers believe in unconditional obedience, with the will of the higher-ups as the only principle of action. But Deng Shintong is not, and Zhang Yi is not either. Therefore, instead of feeling that Zhang Yi is rebellious, Deng Shintong appreciates his intelligence. Deng Shintong is a good employer. As long as you have talent, you can do it, and you can tolerate anything else. After all, Deng Shintong, is an excellent leader. An excellent leader is good at discovering the strengths of his subordinates and allowing them to better drive themselves. Chapter 595, Show Off the Other Side. Zhang Yi led the group out of the Tianchang Hall, which was still bustling with activity. Although the meeting was over, many people stayed behind, actively discussing the situation in Linhai City. Zhang Yi didn't have to chat with them, and he could get more information by asking by Li Changqing. At this moment, they heard a mocking voice in their ears. Tianhai City is right next to Linhai City, and now that the Neon Samurai have invaded, you've actually cowered and fled. What a disgrace. This voice couldn't help but make everyone present change their faces. In particular, Chen Jingwan's face turned red and then green, and anger and humiliation filled his eyes. Because the person speaking was Sun Jianming, the leader of the powerful Dezhei City faction. Zhang Yi frowned slightly and looked over at them. He saw the 3 major factions of Dezhei City gather together and walk over. The number of foreigners in these 3 major factions was much greater than that of Tianhai City, and the number was more than 3 times that of Tianhai City. Naturally, they overwhelmed them in terms of momentum. Xiao Honglian and the others were a little nervous. The difference in numbers is too great. If they really fight, Xiao Honglian subconsciously looked at Zhang Yi. If Zhang Yi intervenes, they still have a chance to win. No, they definitely can win. Because Zhang Yi never fights a battle he can't win. Thinking about this, Xiao Honglian felt much more at ease, and the more she looked at Zhang Yi's handsome profile, the more mesmerizing it became. After returning to Tianhai City, she definitely wanted to get closer to Zhang Yi. The future landscape of the Jiangnan region would definitely change, and she also needed to find an umbrella for the Yansheng base. The leaders of the three major forces in Days City walked over towards them. They were still some distance apart from each other, and it was clear that their relationship was not that harmonious. It was just that when it came to pressuring Tianhai City, their goals were the same. Zhang Yi smiled faintly and said, "Didn't Zhu Shui say it? This matter depends entirely on everyone's willingness. I don't think we need to worry about what we do we?" Sun Jianming and the other two men exchanged glances, and the contempt in their eyes grew even stronger. Even the aliens next to them snickered. It's laughable that they would even say something like that. In the face of such a just cause, all you can do is hide like a coward. Hey, do you really think you have the right to represent Tianhai here? I'd say that Tianhai's power is already in decline. Just look at the leader of the Chaoyu base, TSK Tisk. If you don't have the ability to control such a good area as Tianhai, you might as well give it up early. The aliens from Days City mocked the aliens from Tianhai City without restraint. This made the Tianhai City aliens look very unpleasant. Even Lian Yu, who was a good-natured person, couldn't help but frown, subconsciously looking at Zhang Yi. As long as Zhang Yi spoke, they would not hesitate to rush up and beat the faces of these people. However, as Zhang Yi listened to their mockery, there was no expression on his face. The weak get irritated by other people's provocation, like Qin Jingguan. Because of their weakness, they are inferior and cannot bear to hear the slightest mockery. But to the strong, the voices of the weak are too small to be heard. How could he lose his temper over a bunch of worms? He would only feel pity for their ignorance. But Zhang Yi would not fight outside the Tianchan Club. Presumably, the other party also intended to provoke them into fighting, and then strike back hard. In this way, even if the higher-ups of Blizzard City blame them, they can shift the blame to the foreigners from Tianhai City. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and a pure murderous intent arose in his heart. These annoying bugs, he really wanted to step on them one by one. He smiled faintly, "Excuse me." Then he said to the others next to him, "Let's go." After saying that, Zhang Yi turned around without looking back, walking towards the direction of the apartment that was far away. Xiao Honglian, Qin Jingguan, and the others were waiting for Zhang Yi to make a move. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yi didn't have the slightest temper, and just walked away after being mocked like that. They were dumbfounded. The same also applied to the strangers in Ozawa City. How could they tolerate being mocked like that to their faces? Were they really weak and incompetent, or were they just too tolerant? Only Lian Yu, Uncle Yu, Fat Su, and the others followed Zhang Yi behind with smiles on their faces. They had long since understood Zhang Yi's style of doing things. How could they possibly anger him with just a few words? Seeing that everyone in Zhang Yi's team had left, Xing Tian hurriedly followed suit. From beginning to end, Zhang Yi had not even bothered to greet them. In Zhang Yi's eyes, if they wanted to go and fight the people of Days City, he would not intervene. Xiao Honglian and Qin Jingguan's people understood something in their hearts. They glared fiercely at the people from Ozawa City and then silently turned and left. Sun Jianming spat viciously onto the ground. Bah! Cowards without guts. What a load of crap! On the other side, Gu Hongdai, the leader of the organization, said with a smile, "Their leader looks so weak. How can someone like that lead a team? As a leader, you must have enough authority and ability. If you can't protect your territory and subordinates well, who will obey you?" In Gu Hongdai's opinion, Zhang Yi's approach was a sign of weakness. At this time, Chen Lianyu, the leader of the third force, whose eyes flashed with a cunning light, said with a smile, "Isn't this just what we want?" Sun Jianming, Gu Hongdai, and Chen Lianyu looked at each other, then all of them revealed a sinister smile on their faces. They could already determine what kind of situation Tianhai City was in today. The leader of the Chaoyu base, once one of the 5 major forces in Tianhai City, was just an outsider of Gamma level, and was hung up and beaten by Sun Jianming. In Days City, this level is at most the level of a team leader. They deliberately came here to pick a fight, but in fact, they wanted to confirm the strength of the other organizations in Tianhai City. However, as it turned out, they spoke insolently and insulted, but those people did not even dare to respond, and they fled in disgrace. This is a very good opportunity, Sun Jianming said in a deep voice. Gu Hongdai looked at the two of them with a smile. It's rare that the three of us can get together. Why don't we find a place to have a drink and chat? Sun Jianming and Chen Lianyu readily agreed to Gu Hongdia's proposal. They all knew what was on each other's mind. Now that there was external interference in the Jiangnan region, and several major forces were involved in the siege of Linhai City's Ronin and the surrounding area of Tianhai City. At this time, no one would care what happened in Tianhai City. None of them had signed up for that mission. The goal was to take over Tianhai City, the piece of fat meat. Don't be fooled by Xu Zheng's righteous words forbidding them to fight among themselves. But as long as they take over Tianhai City first, there are naturally many ways to explain it. For example, helping a sister city maintain law and order or targeted support for impoverished and weak regions. As long as they create a fait accompli first, the Jiangnan region won't say anything at that time. Who will speak up for the weak?